Good evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. We'll start with the headlines. The Sultanate authorizes 5 international banks to issue global bonds worth around $2.5 billion to finance the state's budget deficit. The credit limits of 17 million Omani riyals are approved for domestic and non-oil export markets. And Iraqi forces renew their offensive against the Daesh group around the city of Mosul after driving the militants out of most of Fallujah. Those are the headlines, and now for the news in details. As part of its plans to finance the state's budget deficit, the Ministry of Finance said that it has authorized 5 international banks with the task of making necessary arrangements to issue global bonds worth $1.5 to $2.5 billion. The statement issued by the Ministry of Finance said that the Sultanate had recently managed to successfully complete the requirements for issuing bonds worth $2.5 billion. The value of the subscription application by 524 investors stood at more than $6 billion. The statement pointed out that the high turnout by investors on the bonds offered by the Sultanate, which were 3 times oversubscribed, is an evidence of the investors' and international banks' trust in the Omani economy. The Export Credit Guarantee Agency of Oman, the ECGA, held its 5th board meeting of the year. The board adopted credit limits with a total value of 17 million Omani riyals, of which the share of the approved credit limits for domestic markets amounted to more than 1.7 million riyals, while the approved credit limit for Omani non-oil export markets amounted to more than 15.2 million Omani riyals. The board also discussed other related topics concerning export insurance, in addition to commissioning ECGA's 5-year plan, which will be ambitious and contribute towards advancing the progress and development, as well as strengthening the role of the agency in promoting Oman's non-oil exports. The meeting was chaired by His Excellency Saeed bin Saleh Al-Kiyumi, Chairman of Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Chairman of the Board of ECGA. The number of insured in the private sector in the Sultanate amounted to 211,370. The majority of the insured were in the age range of 26 to 30 years, making up 24.3% of the total number. These figures were according to the latest statistics issued by the Public Authority for Social Insurance for May 2016. The number of active establishments covered by social insurance system reached 16,056 establishments. The total number of registered cases by the end of May amounted to 25,097 cases. The average wage for the insured was 648 Omani riyals. The Public Authority for Social Insurance pointed out that at the end of service cases, which also included the termination of services, resignations, transferring to another employer, and the end of service due to death and inability to work, amounted by the end of May to 23,712 cases. The Omani self-employed system and the like showed an increase by 8,816 insured. With regards to insurance protection extension system for Gulf Cooperation Council country citizens, the number of insured reached 1,746 at the end of May this year. And the number of insured in social insurance system for Omanis working abroad and the like amounted to 37 people. The Ministry of Environment and Climate Affairs handed over the first wildcat registered in the Sultanate to Omani Wild Animal Breeding Center of the Royal Court Affairs. The ministry recorded the wildcat 2 weeks ago in the Governorate of Musandam in cooperation with a citizen, and then sent DNA samples to Sultan Qaboos University, which confirmed that the samples match with the genetics of the Omani wild cat. It lives in most of mountainous areas in the Sultanate, and it eats rodents, birds, and reptiles, and its mating season starts during the winter time. Muscat Securities Market's general index recorded a decrease by 1.3%, closing at the level of 5,808 points. The financial sector index lost 180 points, while the industrial sector index lost 50 points, and services index decreased by 27 points. The value of trading amounted to 11,100,000 Omani riyals, dropping by around 43%. Within the aim to encourage younger generations to memorize the Holy Quran, the Ministry of Endowment and Religious Affairs and the Governorate of Dhofar, in cooperation with the social initiatives in the Wilaya of Salalah, held a competition for memorizing the Holy Quran. The competition seeks to connect students with the Holy Book as well as increasing communication between parents and schools in addition to encouraging them to memorize the Holy Quran. The competition included various levels starting from memorizing one part and ending with memorizing the whole of the Holy Quran. And still to come in our news bulletin. 2,300 meters above sea level, researchers are looking at the geothermal potential of the Kratala volcano in the Comoros.
صوغاتنا سيارات، صوغاتنا هدايا وجوائز نقدية وعينية. مخيلني
أقول لك أعطي واحد 300 واحد السيارة، هذه جوائزنا.
والإجابة صح. صوغاتنا أسئلة ومعلومات، كل هذا وغيره في صوغات طوال شهر رمضان المبارك عبر شاشة تلفزيون سلطنة عمان.
أرسل كلمة صوغات على عمان تل 91191. أريد 91818.
برنامج المسابقات صوغات في الأوقات التالية.
Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Iraqi forces renewed their offensive against the Daesh group around the city of Mosul on Saturday after driving the militants out of most of Fallujah. Mosul is the last major urban center in Iraq still under the Daesh group control after Iraqi forces raised the national flag over government headquarters in the heart of Fallujah yesterday. Iraqi commanders announced the launch of an offensive to retake Mosul and surrounding Nineveh province in March, but under domestic political pressure, the government diverted its forces to Fallujah, just west of Baghdad last month. The target of the operation was to take Qayara and make it a launch pad for Mosul. Qayara, which has an airfield, lies across the river Tigris from the main base for pro-government forces in the Kurdish-controlled area of Makhmur. It is some 60 kilometers south of Mosul. At least 7 people died in rebel shelling of a neighborhood of the Syrian city of Aleppo held by the Kurdish YPG militia at dawn today. More than 40 people were also wounded in the attack on the Sheikh Maqsoud area, a district next to the only way in and out of the rebel-held parts of the northern city, the Castello Road. An escalation in air and artillery strikes in recent weeks around the roads has made it virtually impassable, putting hundreds of thousands of people in Aleppo under effective siege. The YPG controls nearly all of Syria's northern frontier with Turkey and has been a close ally of the United States in the campaign against the Daesh group in Syria. Meanwhile, a 48-hour ceasefire in Aleppo announced by Russia on Thursday had little impact on fighting, and airstrikes and shelling have continued since then. Sudanese rebels called on the Khartoum government today to resume peace negotiations in Addis Ababa after it declared a unilateral 4-month ceasefire in the Blue Nile and South Kordofan. The two states, which both have large ethnic minority populations, have been racked by rebellion ever since neighboring South Sudan broke away in 2011 without any resolution of their grievances. 5 years of on and off conflict between the army and the rebel Sudan's People's Liberation Movement North have seen neither side gain a decisive upper hand, but successive rounds of peace talks in the Ethiopian capital have broken up without a deal. Both sides have suffered heavy casualties since the previous ceasefire expired earlier this year. The island nation of Comoros is hoping geothermal power from steaming volcanoes could help plug the gap in its energy supply as power cuts continue hitting the economy. Here's a report with more details.
These steaming vents could be the future for energy in the island nation of Comoros. 2,300 meters above sea level, researchers are looking at the geothermal potential of the Karthala volcano.
Tiny bit more, we're just 1 degree off.
The study has been funded by the African Union, New Zealand and the UNDP. With more investment, a power plant here could be operational by 2022.
We plan to install a plant with an initial capacity of 10 megawatts and then increase to 20 megawatts. And following that, to progressively meet the energy demands of the country.
Et suivre aussi la demande.
The Indian Ocean archipelago is facing a desperate energy crisis, with hours-long power cuts hitting everything from hospitals to small businesses. This bakery is struggling to survive.
It's impossible to go a day without losing bread because of the power cuts. In the time it takes to start the generator, the bread can be ruined. We're asking the electricity company to do everything it can to guarantee our supply, because small businesses like us are losing out.
On the main island, only 6 out of 15 generators supplying the public are working. The African Development Bank was supposed to finance renovation, but nothing has been done in years.
Comoros needs to have electricity now, not tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but today. In the future, in the short and medium term, we should be able to envisage guaranteed production. But for now and going forward, we need to improve production and the network.
Comoros is also exploring offshore oil and gas fields, and a highly polluting fuel oil plant should be operational by 2018. Meanwhile, the economy is up in smoke, with 1 in 2 young people unemployed.
Here are the Ramadan times for tomorrow. Fajr prayers at 3:53 a.m. and Maghrib prayers at 7:01 p.m. And now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Clear to partly cloudy skies will prevail over the coastal areas of the Governorate of Dhofar and its nearby mountains, with chances of intermittent drizzle. The rest of the Sultanate will have clear skies with clouds and scattered rainfall over the Hajar Mountains. Winds will be southwesterly moderate to active over the coastal areas of the Arabian Sea, while it will be northeasterly light to moderate over the coastal areas of the Sea of Oman. The rest of the governorates, it will be southeasterly to easterly light to moderate. Seas will be slight to moderate along the coastal areas of the Sea of Oman and Musandam, with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters, while along the coastal areas of the Arabian Sea, it will be rough, with a maximum wave height of 4 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman Television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The Sultanate authorizes 5 international banks to issue global bonds worth around $2.5 billion to finance the state's budget deficit. The credit limits of 17 million Omani Riyals are approved for domestic and non-oil export markets. And Iraqi forces renew their offensive against the Daesh group around the city of Mosul after driving the militants out of most of Fallujah. With that, we come to an end to tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, good night.